So, last week we were sitting here talking about monkey see, monkey do. And this week we want to kind of segue into not the little ones, because we talked about the ages of 6 to 14. Let's talk about the 15, 18-year-olds, the impact that we have on them as far as this stage of their life, which is a different set of, how do I put it? We're going to move into the more of a mentorship type role rather than,
coming of age.
Yeah, coming of age role. They're moving into adulthood. And so there's a few things that we got to make sure as men that we're hitting on to make sure that our sons and our daughters are thinking the right way and walking things out the way that they should. So, one of the first things I was sitting there looking at, and I was thinking, what's the biggest thing that we lack in our culture today, and what's one of the biggest things we need to make sure that we drive home with our kids? And that's to take responsibility.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
First thing we got to teach our children, especially when they become young adults. I even hate saying young adults because there's really no such thing. But when they start becoming adults, they need to understand that they need to take responsibility for the things that they do, the decisions that they make, right?
Yep. I messed up. Get used to it. It happens all the time. That's how you learn.
Yep.
Well, and the other part of it, too, is the only way they're going to learn that is by us emulating that with them. Like when we do make a mistake, it's like I tell guys all the time, I'm like, they're like, well, John, I've been doing this for so long, and now I got to go back to this one kid and do this. I said, well, just tell him you screwed up.
Oh, yeah.
You were wrong. I jacked it up. I shouldn't have done this, and I should have walked this out this way.
Yep.
And I've learned, as your father, I've had to learn the hard way that that's not the right way to do it. I needed to be more involved. I needed to make a firmer stand. I needed to make sure that I made my principles, my morals, my ideals, more prevalent in the conversation rather than taking a back seat. I failed, and as a man, I got to take that on the chin, but I'm not going to continue to go down that road just because I screwed up.
Yeah.
Right.
I happen to do that with my iPads, or the kids' iPads and technology. I said, guys, I screwed up. I gave you way too much time. This whole weekend, big mistake. We're not doing it for the next couple days. You guys are they're gone. And the kids, I said, guys, pretty much your dad screwed up. Your dad wanted peace and quiet. Your dad wanted to do something different. And he just let you do whatever you wanted with it. And it was a big mistake because you take him away, man. It's like taking away crack from a crackhead.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and you got to look at the root of it, right? And if we're going to be honest as men, you made a good point. You gave it to him to shut him up.
Yep.
And that is not the right thing to do.
Nope.
The hardest battle we're ever going to face is in the four walls of our home. And we talked about that on the show on multiple different occasions. And we need to understand that that's going to be the hardest battle that we deal with. It's going to be, and we're going to fight our asses off when it comes to our wives and our kids. It's just the facts.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Just take responsibility. Say, hey, I messed up. I'm going to learn from it next time. It's the same way. Whenever they do something wrong in my house, I'm like, guys, just say you're sorry and mean it. That's all we ask.
The other part of it, too, Ray, we've talked about this before, is that we have to understand, too, that we can't always look for somebody else to blame for the bad behavior of our kids.
Yep.
Right.
We get so many parents out there that the first inclination they want to do, well, it's the teacher. Yeah. It's the coach. It's the school's fault. It's this, it's this one's fault. It's that one's fault.
It's a little boy next door.
Maybe little Johnny is a pain in the ass and he needs a good ass whooping. Maybe that's a problem.
Right.
Maybe your kid is a little spoiled, I've got family members right now that they've had a couple issues with their kid in school, and every time you turn around, it's like the first inclination, well, it's a school or it's a teacher. Well, no, maybe it's your kid. Maybe
right.
And I've had a conversation with my family member about that, and we were talking about it, and even they were like, "Yeah, I'm realizing it," but their spouse is pushing back on it, and rather than him pushing back on his spouse, he's kind of just like taking it on the chin, and we can't do that as men. If we don't accept responsibility or take responsibility, or we deflect responsibility, that's what we're teaching our kids, especially at an influential age when they're coming into adulthood, that, when things get tough or things ain't right, point the finger at somebody else. It's not your fault.
Yeah. Scream louder and longer until they accept it. But you can't do that. You have to, and it's not just about responsibility when you make a mistake. It's also a responsibility that just wasn't the right choice, which can't, like at work, there was a better way to get something done, but you said, hey, we're going to do it this way. And then through that process of learning, you've discovered there is a better way. Taking the responsibility, saying, I'm glad you found that, and giving credit where credit is due.
I remember my kids used to come home from school, and it was always, I don't like this teacher, I don't like that teacher. And you know what I used to tell them? Tough shit.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Your job is school, right? And your teacher gives you an assignment, you do the assignment. I don't care whether you like your teacher or not. If your teacher is not mistreating you, verbally abusing you or physically abusing you or, making an example out of you or mistreating you, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear about whether you like your teacher or not. Because you know what? You're going to work with people your entire life that you don't like.
Yeah.
And you still got to do the job.
You're going to have bosses you don't like.
And that's taking responsibility for what you have to do.
And it's going to help build your endurance about how much you can take. Like, I give you an example. One of my youngest daughters, my youngest daughter actually had two of the easiest teachers back to back. Next year, she had one of the hardest teachers. I'm like, you were babied. You were coddled, and now guess what? This is the real world. Get used to it. Simple.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, if we teach our kids, it shouldn't matter on the teacher, right?
No.
Right.
If the teacher gives you an assignment, you just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You don't do it, you fail.
Doing that assignment is your responsibility.
Yep. And unfortunately, the schools sometimes they teach them that you can wait till the last minute and we'll give you third, fourth, and fifth and sixth chances.
Yeah.
When we were coming up, you didn't do it, you failed.
Yeah. That's what I tell my kids. I'm like, I don't care if you've got till Friday. You've got time right now.
Yep.
Quit sitting there watching TV and do the work.
Yeah.
Get it done now. That assignment is your responsibility. Yes, you have until Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Why wait till the 11th hour?
Yep.
Do it now.
Don't put off till tomorrow what can be done today because tomorrow's not promised.
Yeah.
I just heard a crazy stat about kids going into college now are reading at an 8th grade level.
Oh,
and because the teachers are just like, COVID, we're fine. We're just going to
so many kids would breeze through because
so many
of
kids
COVID.
would breeze through. So many kids got away with
doing
everything.
their jobs either,
Yeah.
but that's besides the point.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they didn't want to take responsibility for that.
But that's crazy. That's you're teaching kids like you don't have to be the best.
Okay, but how many
going up.
parents took the responsibility of saying my kid's not ready?
So
Yeah.
Why are you greasing my kid through?
Right.
None of them. They let them. Oh, great! They just passed. Let's move them on.
Yeah.
I mean, instead of
Hold them
stepping
back.
up and saying, hey, you know what, my kid's not ready.
Well, just think about that. You said COVID was what, 2 years ago now?
Mm-hmm.
3.
So kids going into college now were in 9th and 10th grade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they're still reading. So in 9th and 10th grade, they were already behind.
They were already behind.
So that means they just limboed the whole way.
Exactly.
American students right now they say in the 12th grade or like what is it, 8th grade level?
Yeah,
or?
eighth grade level.
Reading
and,
level, most of
and a lot of the colleges are like, all right, we're just got to dumb our stuff down.
Yeah.
What did we talk about last episode? Lowering the bar, moving the goalposts constantly. Oh, this is too hard. We'll just take it down a notch.
But it starts in the home.
Mm-hmm.
It does.
Can't point the finger at everybody else. We got to take responsibility as parents because we put up with the shit and we deal with it and we make excuses for them.
Well, you've got to, as a parent, your responsibility is to make sure that your child is doing what they are ultimately capable of doing. So if they're capable of 10th grade math, 10th grade English, and they're in 10th grade, you make sure they're doing that. If they're capable of more as a parent, it's your responsibility to make sure that they're being challenged, that they are. My daughter, she doesn't test very well. So she spent one whole year, the prior year, in honors math. They do a test at the end of the year for placement in the next grade. She gets placed into a regular math class because she doesn't test well. People are like that. People can do it all day long, but when you put the stress of testing on them, they just kind of shut down.
Yeah.
So she gets into this regular math class the following year. And the teacher hands out a thing, and she's like, I've already done this. Bing, 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 boom, done. 10 minutes, she's done with it, and teacher's looking at him. There's about 5 other kids in the class, same thing as her.
Yeah.
And teacher's looking at it going, how'd y'all do that so fast? Like, we did it last year.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you were in honors class last year? Yeah, we were in honors class last year. And he goes, huh. So he sends an email to the parents, and my daughter comes home and she tells us, she goes, yeah, it's the same stuff as last year. So it's nothing new. I'm like, okay, well, you're going back to honors class. If he's going to allow you, he's giving you the option to stay or go back to honors class. We said, you're going to honors class. She's like, okay. Her and one other student were the only ones. The other 3 stayed.
Yeah, because it's easy.
Yep, because it was easy.
So responsibility. We need to teach them how to take responsibility. The other thing too is love and protect. We have to teach our, especially young men, on how to love and protect.
Yeah.
Know when to be a lion, know when to be a lamb.
Yep. And we also need to make sure that they understand who they're supposed to love and who they're supposed to protect.
Mm-hmm.
We touched on a little bit on the last podcast, and women especially. And we talked about monkey see, monkey do, and the best way we're going to do that is by the way we treat their mothers, right?
Yeah.
This is a little shout out to the guys out there. Maybe you've been through a divorce, or maybe you got a woman that you had a child with, and you guys weren't really intimately connected. You weren't in love with each other. Maybe things just happened. You still have a responsibility to treat your son or your daughter's mother with respect. That responsibility is not just to the mother, but it's to your children.
Right.
Yep.
Because they're going to be watching you and how you walk things out, regardless of the situation. And we could sit here all day long and talk about how people mistreat people, or this one's this and this one's that. The only person that we can control is ourselves in the way that we walk things out and how we treat people.
Right.
And so that's the biggest step, because love is a selfless act. It's not selfish.
Right.
So that means you're automatically putting others in front of yourself. And then protect is another selfless act, because you're putting others in front of you and putting their value above yours to make sure that you are willing to step into the fray to make sure that person has safety.
Oh yeah. I heard Mike's comment, know when to be a lion, know when to be a lamb. We're only to be a lamb at one time in our entire life.
Yep.
And it's got nothing to do with the world.
Nope.
So we need to always be a lion. We need to love like a lion. We need to protect like a lion.
I like that.
You'll see the king of, or the lion of the pride, and he's letting the little cubs climb on him, bite his ears, provoke him, play with him, and he's playing back with him. That's loving like a lion, and then when the shit hits the fan, he's protecting like a lion. Yeah. So we need to lead, love, protect, just like lions.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, when I said that, I meant don't be yelling at your daughter. Don't be getting pissed off, really angry with them, gently. Yeah. That's what I mean by the lamb.
I knew exactly what you meant. I knew exactly what you meant. I just something hit me a little different.
No,
that's
good.
all.
That's good.
The other part too is that we need to understand that we equate being a lion a lot of times to being fierce or being aggressive, and that's not the case. If you look at a lion, most of the time he's laying around, sleeping, chilling. The only time he gets aggressive is when he has to. That's what we talk about when we talk about the definition of meekness. He has the ability to do whatever, but he doesn't unless he has to.
Right.
And that's really what we need to learn as men, is that we can be docile, we can be relaxed, we can be loving, we can be kind, we can be gentle, but as you said, Ray, as you so eloquently put it, when the shit hits the fan, you got to be ready to handle business.
Right.
And, that's what most women want. And that's what we need to raise our sons up to be. The other thing, too, is be faithful. Now, we think about this word faithful, and we put it into a sexual connotation all the time.
Right.
Faithfulness is not just about sex. So let's cut through all the bullshit, right? Faithfulness is also about being faithful by being faithful to the responsibilities you have as a man when it comes to providing for, taking care of, loving, and all these different things when it comes to your spouse or other people in your life. You need to be faithful when it comes to that.
Man of your word, integrity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to step into it when you need to step into it. And, you need to be able to be dependent upon,
Yep.
Well, when you think about it, there's been times where, and I've heard this multiple times about when it comes to the sexual aspect of faithfulness, you know what I mean? I've heard it many, many times that a woman will forgive a man for straying sexually if they know that it was, physically only. But a woman is less likely to forgive a man if there's been an emotional strain. So another woman that he's been communicating with, contacting, that he's been emotional with, as far as sharing his problems and his concerns and this and that. A woman's intimacy. A woman is less likely to forgive that than she is the physical act of straying, of cheating.
Yeah. And women, and anyone really, if you're just say if your dad is stepping out on your mom, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, I could do the same thing when you get old. And that's kind of programmed into them of hey, my dad did it, my mom did it.
You got to take responsibility for your own actions.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, everybody knows that that's not something you should do. So whether your dad did it or your mom did it, don't matter.
Exactly.
But what I was getting at with the faithfulness is it's not just being faithful to her physically, it's being faithful to her emotionally.
Yep.
You know, her
Well, and the other
heart,
part of it too is the ladies out there too. I mean, you got to understand what being faithful is too.
right?
You know, there's roles out there, and I get a little aggravated because this all gets dumped on men. Like, men are supposed to be faithful and true and protectors and lovers and all this, and then we've got a culture coming up now of young women that think that all they got to do is be pretty.
Right.
You know, all they got to do is give up sex and they're good. If as long as I can give you good sex and I look good, that's all I need to bring to the table. And you know, that's why our culture is so twisted, because you know, women have a masculine mentality, and you know, when it comes to what they think a man wants.
Mm-hmm.
But men are not attracted to masculinity. They're attracted to femininity. So I joke around now with a lot of guys. I mean, I'm in my late 40s, and I was talking to one of the guys at work the other day, and I said, you know what's funny is that, yes, sex is important to a man, but you know what's even more important? Peace.
Yeah.
Peace.
Oh yeah.
Men at our age and my age, you know, go knocking on the door at 49, I want peace, man.
Yeah.
I want to be able to come home and not have any drama. I want to be able to be greeted at the door by somebody who's glad that I came home, that appreciates me, that loves me, that respects me. Not somebody that's going to trip over themselves to kiss my ass,
Right.
but somebody that's doing things for me because they want to do things for me because of the things I do for them and because they love me. And we've got this mentality where, you know, it's like, what do you bring to the table mentality? And and women think for whatever reason that being faithful is only sexual. Well, you're not being very faithful to your husband if he's working all day, coming home, and you're sitting on your ass and you can't even, the house isn't clean, the kids aren't taken care of, there's no food on the table, he's got dirty clothes. I mean, and he's got to come home and he's got to find himself something to eat. He's got to wash his own clothes. He's got to, you know, take care of the kids. I mean, that's not faithfulness. Just because you think you can put on some lipstick and spray some perfume and look good, that's not all a man wants.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's not what men are looking for. And we got a culture where, you know, we think that that's good enough. And, you know, men want peace. They want respect. That's what they want.
Oh,
you know, sex is great, but I mean, that's not everything.
No.
It's only going to last for a little while.
And I was listening to another podcast, and it was guys
Shorter for some than others.
Yeah, there was. they had this panel of women on, and they're talking about, you know, well, that's all men want. The women are like, all men want is, you know, is sex. That's all they care about. That's all they want. So, you know, might as well, you know, get it to them and give it to them. This and that, blah blah blah. And the guy looked her in the face and said, "That's wrong." She goes, "No, I know, man." He goes, "I am a man."
No shit.
He goes, "But if all you have to offer me is sex, then that's all I want from you."
Mm.
Yeah, because I'm going to take whatever you're going to be willing to give me.
Yeah, but if you have, you know, a good moral compass, you're faithful, you're responsible, you're loving. I want all of that.
Well, it's like the word submissive, right? We have turned that into a bad word in our culture. Like being submissive means that you're less than, or he lords over you. No, it means that, you know what a guy really wants? He wants to know at the end of the day that if he wants to have sex with you, that you're willing to do it with him.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Yeah. And I'll tell you what, most dudes, you know, most guys that are working and they've got life and everything else going on, most dudes don't expect it to happen 3 times a day, every day of the week. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But when they want to have it, they want it available and accessible to them.
Right.
And that's really what it comes down to. It's like, yeah, I want to do this, but I don't want to do it all the time, or I don't expect you to do it all the time. But when I want to do it, yeah, I expect you to be willing, ready, and able to do it, because I'm willing and able and ready to do what the things that you need me to do by getting up every day, providing, protecting, loving, caring. You know, we all make sacrifices, and it shouldn't even be a sacrifice to sleep with your husband. Come on.
Yeah.
If it's that hard for you to sleep with your husband, why the hell are you married to him?
Mm-hmm.
True.
I mean, then again, I wouldn't sleep with me either. But, you know, that's why they got lights.
I realize I'm the oldest chicken in this coop. And, you know, there's no more thrill of the chase. Everything's, you know, cashed in right up front.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So there's no more, there's positive theater of the mind, too, just as much as negative.
Well, you think about we joked around a few weeks back, and I got aged because I mentioned the Sears catalog, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But remember back in the day, the old Sears catalog, they had a lingerie section,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And there's a lot to be said for the unknown, you know?
Yeah.
There's a lot more excitement of not seeing everything. You know what I mean? Like, once it's exposed, it's over.
Yeah.
You know, I can remember back when I was in my younger day, when I was in my early 20s and going to strip joints, you know, it was exciting when the girl first came out and she had some clothes on, but once she got naked, it was over. Then let's move on to the next one because you've already seen what's in front of you. So what's next? What's next? Yep. What's next? And that's the culture we live in with everything. What's next? What's next? What's next?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So if you're going to rush to that, there's no intrigue, there's no pursuit, there's no chase. What's the point?
All I got to do is swipe one way or the other.
But that slides, slides, no pun intended.
The thrill of the chase
into the next topic. The next thing we need to be making sure that we're focused on is strong morals.
Right.
You know, we're going to mentor these young men. We need to make sure that we impart strong morals on them. Now, everybody has a different moral compass, and there are different cultures around the world, and some feel stronger about some things than others. You know, what I would just say to you is live in your convictions.
Yeah.
You know, if in your culture it's expected to do this or whatever, and you feel strongly about it, stand firm in it.
Yeah.
And make sure that you help your sons to understand the value in it or the importance of it. Same thing with your daughters, because that's what gets lost is that if we don't impart those things on our daughters, they're not going to understand what it is to be submissive to that type of a man and why that man thinks and acts the way that he does.
Right.
So, also, you know, stand up for what's right.
We need more people like that these days.
You know, if we're going to mentor these young men, we need to teach them and mentor them about what it is to stand for what's right. Not about what you feel, you know, I feel this, but I feel that. Let me just give you a bit of advice. If you're in a conversation with somebody and they start off with what I feel, just end the conversation.
Yeah.
Because it's going nowhere. Because
there's no arguments with that. You can't fight that. You can't, there's no proof. It doesn't matter. You can show them, you know.
They don't care about facts.
Yeah, you can show them facts, stats, and all that. Well, I just don't feel that that's right. Well, what are you going to do? I mean.
Well, the other part of it is, one of the other ones is love and respecting others, right?
Yeah.
Just let's not get this twisted. You can love somebody and disagree with somebody.
Right.
Yep.
You can love somebody and not be cool with the way that they walk things out or how they live their life.
Right.
You can love somebody and, you know, not be okay with, you know, the things that they do or the places that they go. I mean, I was thinking about this today when I was a young dude. One of my closest friends, I look back on it, and I mean, you know, when you're a teenager, your friends are for different reasons. Ours were because we were all poor living in the projects together. But one of my closest friends, he was kind of an idiot. I mean, he was, you know, reading the Satanic Bible. He was, you know, into that weird shit, trying to figure himself out. And I always found myself, you know, okay, I'm not into that shit. He's weird or whatever. He's just trying to get attention and whatever not. But I was able to overlook that because I cared about him as a person. Now, I didn't get caught up in what he was doing. And I would tell him how stupid he was, and you know how he was dabbling in some stupid stuff. But at the end of the day, I did have a legitimate love for him as a person.
Right.
I didn't like what he was doing,
and
we definitely weren't on the same side of morality when it came to certain things. But you know, then you slowly see yourself distancing yourself from those people.
Right.
And it's important for us to make sure that our sons and our daughters understand that you can love and respect people, but you don't have to be engulfed or ensnared with what they're doing or how they're living.
Right. Exactly.
Next one's what? Be a provider? Is that what we got?
Yeah.
Teach your kids how to be a provider, especially the older ones. Teach them that, you know, no job is too good for you. I remember years ago, I gave my son a flyer. I'm like, oh, McDonald's is hiring. He goes, I'm not working there. I'm like, what the? Like, where did we screw up that literally you can't work at a place? And he's like, well, I just don't want to get in food. I'm like, they pay money, you get a job, you can build your way up, and then you move on to the next one. That's what most people usually do. And you don't see many people at McDonald's for 20 years.
You know what I told my son? If shoveling shit pays the most money, give me the shovel and show me the pile.
Exactly.
He's in food now, right?
Yeah,
now he's in food.
Yeah, okay.
That's hilarious. I didn't think of that right now.
But you know, the other part of it is that monetary is not the only way to provide.
I was getting it. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
Go ahead, Ray.
That's
I
good.
kind of got a feeling you were.
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking, and we touched on it a little bit before. You know, husbands and wives. You know, if you're a stay-at-home wife and you're there, it's more than just monetary. It's providing, like you said. It's taking care of the house. That is your job at that point. The laundry, stuff like that. That is a means of providing. You provide emotional support. You provide physical support for your husband, for your kids. You take care of that whole aspect of it. That is a huge. My wife stays at home, and she used to want to. She's like, "Oh, I feel like I need to help provide. I need to help provide." I'm like, "Babe, you are," because at our current state of life where we were at, I'm like, if you go get a job. Now we're shuffling who's picking up the kids, who's going to grab the kids, who's helping with homework, who's going to clean the house, who's going to do the dishes, who's going to make dinner, and it's going to be a shit show. I'm like, you are providing more. You may not think so, but you are providing a great amount by doing what you're doing.
Well, the problem is that our culture has stripped that honor from a woman. I mean, when we went back from the very beginning, we said the number one thing for a man is peace, right?
Yeah.
You cannot have peace when you walk into a house full of chaos.
Right.
Truth.
I mean, you can't if the house is dirty and there's no dinner and the kids ain't kept and everything else. I mean, that's so. If you love your husband and you want to provide something for your husband, provide him that peace and that comfort, so that.
Yeah.
Because for me, like I come home, that's a safe place. That's my place of refuge. That's where I can rest. That's where I can unwind. And if I go in there and there's shit all over the place, I can't unwind. And most dudes can't. Then you feel antsy and you got to move stuff and do this and you feel
until you get it done.
So part of that providing goes both ways. It's not just monetary.
Right.
It's good.
The other thing too is this is a big one that we need to make sure that we're really driving home with our kids. Is modeling forgiveness.
Yep.
In our faith it says that God will forgive you the way that you forgive others. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what it says. So if you have an unforgiving heart, God's not going to forgive you. Right. So and whether you're a Christian or not, that's just a good rule of thumb in life. You can't expect people to forgive you if you're not willing to forgive others.
Right.
And we can't be selective of what forgiveness is. Now, forgiveness is not saying that I'm okay with what you did.
Right.
It's saying that in spite of this, I'm going to move past this, and I'm not going to let this affect our relationship.
Just like love.
Yeah, and you got to create healthy boundaries, and we talk about that. Some people, you give them forgiveness, but you kind of pull back from them because it's just not a healthy situation.
Yep.
And they are what they are, and they, you recognize it for that, and you're like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, the definition for that is grace. You gave him grace. Like, hey, you messed up. I'm giving you grace on that. You could punish you. I'm like, nope. I'm gonna that happened when daughter slammed the door. Normally, I'd go off and neighbors would be all pissed off. I don't know, whatever. But anyway, so I go outside and say, "Don't you ever do that again?" No, I sat in the car as calm as I could be. I said, "I'm giving you grace on this. Do not do that again." And that was it. That's how I ended it.
Yep.
It's like forgiveness. I forgave you.
But you only let that go one time.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Second time it ain't grace, it's stupidity after that.
100%. You get back in that room. You get back in that house.
Well, the other part, this is, and I'm going to mix this up a little bit because I want to make sure that I'm touching on everybody. You want to be a great mentor, honor God. Okay. Now, some people, not everybody believes in the same God, the same faith, or whatever. Okay, but you've got to show your children that there is something greater than you.
Yeah.
And you've got to show honor and respect and reverence for something other than yourself. For us as believers, it's about God, and we put our faith and trust in Him. We honor God by the way we try to live our lives, to live a certain way. Some of you may be sitting there, you listen. Well, maybe you do that by the way you honor your family, by the way that you live your life. Your parents, your grandparents. Some of you may honor a mentor that you've had in your life, or somebody that's imparted some kind of wisdom in your life. I mean, but we need to have something other than ourselves to have honor and respect and reverence for, to teach our children that it's not always about us, you know, and we need to be looking to other things to draw strength and power and wisdom and discernment. Here's a big one, and I'm kind of going these kind of quick towards the end because we've got to wrap up the show here pretty soon. But standing firm in your convictions. Ooh. What's the thing I always say here about compromise?
Compromise, you lose.
Yeah, when you compromise the things you know to be true, you lose. Stand firm in your convictions. If you're convicted and you know in your heart of hearts this is what it is what it's going to be, stand firm in that, man. Mm-hmm. You have to stand firm. It may piss your wife off, your kids off, your in-laws off. It doesn't matter. If you know that it's the right thing to do and you're convicted by it, stand firm in it. Because every single time that I have compromised in that situation, I've lost.
Yep.
And the ramifications can be can be devastating.
Yeah.
And sometimes some are worse than others. The other thing too is understand it's conflict resolution. Your children are going to be looking to you on how to, and other people around you, and I don't just say just kids, but anybody in your life, they're going to see how you deal with conflict. How do you walk things out? How do you navigate through that? How do you treat people? And the way you do that is going to be teaching them. Like Mike, you brought up a good situation. If you're going to yell, scream, and beat your chest, and at the end of the day, you're not doing anything anyway, what difference does it make?
Yep.
You're just teaching your children to just yell, scream, and beat their chest when things don't go right.
Exactly.
And what gets resolved? Nothing. There's no resolution, right?
Truth.
And then understanding this, too, that bad habits and coping mechanisms are extremely dangerous when you're trying to mentor your children and other people. If you're having a bad day and your first response is to go grab a drink, there are people watching. Mm-hmm. If your first response is to do drugs, look at porn, as you said earlier, Ray, slip away to your quiet place by yourself to shrink. Mm-hmm. If you got to have that cigarette to calm down your nerves and to relax you, you are teaching your kids and the people around you that are looking to your nieces, your nephews, other kids. You teach them that when shit gets tough, this is what you do.
Yep.
And this is how you deal with it.
You hide.
Yeah. Essentially, that's what you're doing. You're hiding in all those other aspects of things, right? And there's a multitude of them, gambling, spending, work. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So you got to be very careful what you're using for your coping mechanisms and what kind of bad habits you're forming, Yep. There are guys out there right now that listen to this. You hide at the church. Don't hide behind God. Mm-hmm. That's cowardice. Don't use God as a shield when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I know dudes, and I've met dudes that'll spend more time up at the church than they will in their own homes. Mm-hmm. They won't spend time with their kids. They won't do anything with their wife, but they'll use the church as an excuse while they got to do everything else. That's disgusting. Don't do that. Mm-hmm. That is not what your first mission in your life as a Christian is. The people in the four walls of your house. It's your family. It's your wife and your children. If you're stepping over them to go serve the kingdom, you have no business out there trying to do anything because you've lost sight of what's most important, the people that God has entrusted to you. Mm-hmm. And so, and every one of us is a Christian or is involved in any kind of faith, we've caught ourselves doing that. And you know what? We think it's for the greater good. Don't sacrifice your children on the altar of the greater good. That is not what God wants us to do. God wants us to put our wives and our children first, him first, and them second and third. That's just how it works.
Yep.
So we got to make sure that we're doing that. So you have anything you want to add on that, Ray or Freddie or Maina Mike?
You just wrapped that one up nice and tight. Man.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, I think as we go through these things, mentorship, it's a huge responsibility. It's a blessing and it's a gift. I tell you, sometimes it can feel like a curse because people are watching and you're being held to a higher standard. There's nothing more humbling than when your kid says, Dad, well, you do this. Well, Dad, you said that. Or, honey, you do this. Or, well, dude, I saw you saying that. Or, I saw you doing this. That sucks. But here's the thing. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. We all struggle. And, in the great words of their old Rocky Balboa, it's not how hard you get hit. It's how hard you get hit and get back up. It's how many times you can get hit and keep getting back up. It's how much punishment can you take and keep going. We live in a culture today where we want to take the easy way. Well, you know what? Nothing's easy. Nothing worth fighting for, nothing worth dying for, nothing worth living for is easy. It's hard. It's a battle. It's what we've been put here to do. It's who we are. That's why we're called men. Let me say that again so that can ring true. That's why we're called men. There is dignity in masculinity. This world is trying to steal it from us. You know what? Screw that. We're trying to give it back to them. We're letting them take it from us. We're giving it away. And we don't have any right to do that. It was never ours to give away in the first place because we're not the one that made the determining factor. God did. God made man. God made woman. At the end of the day, point blank, end of story. We need men. If you're listening to this podcast right now and you're thinking, well, damn, dude, that's a long list. Yeah, it is. But it's like eating an elephant. It's one bite at a time. Start at the ass because that's where all the meat is. Because when you do that, my friends, well, hell, that's where the rubber meets the road.